going to go ahead and get started. So we can go ahead and get to the good information. Okay. So good afternoon. My name is Cameron Fitz. I am the AmeriCorps Vista for College Housing and Hunger at the Wake County Cooperative Extension. It's my honor to introduce the founders of Pantry Patrol, a technological app that we're going to introduce to everybody today, and Cindy Myrop, the Food Security Manager of Wake County. So I am the creator of the SNAP Goes to College initiative. It's an initiative that's pretty much bringing awareness to the resources that are available for college students who are lacking basic needs. And one of those resources that are heavily utilized for college students are pantries. And that is going to be the focus for today. So, you know, we do recognize that there's a lot of work to do, so let's get to it. And why are food pantries? We all know why food pantry is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. It provides food security for everybody, and it stores donated items while someone who is experiencing an emergency can access it. It's to encourage low-income families to access healthier foods, have more abundance to distribution, and supply their family with the resources that they need. In Wake County, we have about 79 food pantries. We have a very structured system here where we have a compiled list of those, where the CAFN group created the compiled list of food pantries, and it's linked in these slides and can be resourced when these slides are sent out. So one thing to just completely begin on is food security in general. In the US, according to Feeding America, there are over 53 million people that use food services, such as food banks and food pantries. So in North Carolina, we see that we have a food insecurity rate of about 12%. That's fairly average, and this is the report for 2020. So looking at North Carolina, this report is from the Central and Eastern Food Bank of North Carolina, and it shows how we are addressing food security in our state in 2022. So, going back to the slide of 2020, we took this information and now we're moving forward with this work. The stats make it incredibly clear that we have a lot of work to do. So I just wanted to highlight all of that in the context of North Carolina. So specifically, we are in Wake County. Wake County is home to the Interfaith Food Shuttle and the Central Eastern North Carolina Food Bank, which is the stats that we just saw. These programs serve multiple counties, and being based in Wake County centralizes the services in our community. It allows us to build partnerships and build resources. One thing to note was the report from Feeding America with Wake County states that the food budget shortage is over $61 million, which is quite a lot of money, and that's not always easy to get. All right, so Wake County food pantries. Food pantries are the ground level work that we all have to focus on. It's the hand-to-hand contributions, and it's the experience and storytelling that we all need to hear so we can make a difference. Here's an example of a food pantry, a college food pantry. It's NC State's Feed the Pack. The pantry had over 8,000 visits in one academic year, distributing over 125,000 pounds of food. So just kind of putting that into context, that's quite a lot of people being accessed with food and being distributed with healthier, nutritious foods. And that's always a downfall with college students. College students have a lot of food insecurity, so college campus pantries are incredibly important. So there will be some pantries that have the overall impact and statistics there will be pantries that have statistics of the overall impact that they have throughout the years. Some pantries do not have that technology. So just to go over what I would like to introduce you guys as concepts for food pantries. We are going to go over a few points of development and innovation of what food pantries can look like and how they can be better accessed. So I would love to introduce the founders of Pantry Patrol. I'm going to go ahead and start your slide. And if you would like to take the floor, it is all yours.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siddharth Muruvada, and along with Arnav Miduri and Abhinav Miduri, we are Pantry Patrol, and we're going to tell you a little bit about our journey and walk you through the process behind Pantry Patrol. And we're also planning on doing a live app demo as well, so stay tuned for that. All right, next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so in the United States, nearly 40% of the food produced never makes it to the table and ends up in landfills. At the same time, 1 in 6 Americans remain food insecure. And as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has only made that situation worse. More households than ever rely on food assistance due to job shortages, job losses, all sorts of reasons that have really highlighted weaknesses in the food infrastructure system. And excuse me, as part of our research, we discovered that food waste and food insecurity really are interconnected, and solving one could help solve the other. In fact, some studies have shown that reducing food waste by 15% would be enough to feed more than 25 million Americans each year. Next slide, please. All right, so while organizations such as food banks help secure donations from national grocers, they provide warehouses for safe storage, and they provide logistical support, it is really the food pantries that are on the front lines, and they feed thousands of people every day, and they need help. Food pantries are typically small, volunteer-run organizations that typically lack financial resources and IT skills necessary to efficiently track their food waste and operate efficiently. And they also lack tools to collaborate directly with their affiliate food banks. So we kind of wanted to help fill the app by developing an application. Next slide, please.
All right, so start talking about some of the engineering requirements behind our application. Initially, to better understand the potential use cases of an application for food pantries, we reached out to the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina and also the UNC Center for Health Promotion and Disease Prevention. And after consulting with experts and executives at both these places, we concluded that our solution should address the problem of tracking, analyzing, and reducing food waste so pantries can stretch their resources to serve more households. With the help of the food bank and professors at UNC, we outlined potential use cases for our application. And with help from local food pantries, we were able to refine these use cases and make them more concrete features we would implement into our application. We also wanted to ensure our solution would run on a variety of devices and platforms, and also ensure that the application is user-friendly, intuitive, secure, and most importantly, affordable. So in the end, our application has 2 main types of features: food pantry management features and food waste management features. And we will delve more into these during our app demonstration. Next slide, please. So in terms of our engineering process, we used iterative development process and developed use cases and features in small increments. And this helped us ensure that the user interfaces were consistent and intuitive. Additionally, we tested with mock data from the food bank and gave frequent demos to various stakeholders, and their feedback was really instrumental in this process. We made extensive use of the AppSheet platform to develop entities, relationships, and customization logic. And the backend of this application is Google Sheets, which is used for data storage. We developed and deployed a deployment model, allowing each pantry to have their own application instance to suit their individual needs, with private data protected by Google authentication. Next slide, please. So we will go more into these features during our app demonstration, but as I mentioned previously, Pantry Patrol includes both food waste management features and next slide, please. Food pantry management features. And we will walk through each of these features and the functionalities of each during our app demonstration. Next slide, please. All right, so we believe that our application offers benefits to 3 distinct communities. Firstly, we believe that food banks can receive food waste reports automatically through our application. We have a feature that automatically generates waste reports and sends it to food banks and gain valuable insights into communities they serve and prepare for future needs. And this includes their affiliate food pantries and the communities they're serving across the state. Secondly, we believe that food pantries can manage their operations more effectively with our application and stretch their resources to more community members. And with these streamlined day-to-day operations, we believe that food pantries can now focus on what they do best, which is serving their communities instead of the labor-intensive methods that they're currently using in laborious paper pencil methods. And lastly, we believe that households will benefit from our application having their custom needs met, like through the prepare a box section, which we'll go into further later through our app demonstration, and will be better served in the long run with dietary and allergy preferences when those are taken into account. Next slide, please. So in creating our application, Arnav touched on this a little bit, but we work closely with the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina, creating an application specifically for their affiliate food pantries at first. And we also work with faculty at UNC Chapel Hill, Gilling School of Global Public Health to ensure their application was robust and met essential needs. We were fortunate enough to receive media coverage from WRAL, CBS 17, Spectrum News, who recognized our efforts, and we presented our app at multiple conferences and events, and the notable ones included Durham World Hunger Day and the North Carolina Child Hunger Leaders Conference. And we also had the honor of demonstrating our application to the governor and the First Lady of North Carolina. And we believe that our volunteer experience at the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina is what enriched our understanding of these operations in the first place. And we believe that this reinforced the application's practicality and usefulness. Currently, we have a total of five food pantries using our application currently, and an additional 2 food pantries who are looking to implement our application into their operations. Next slide, please. So one question you might ask is, how do we know that the features of our application are useful for food pantries? Because we received feedback from domain experts and food bank and food pantry volunteers. And when it comes to sharing food waste data at affiliate food banks, simplifying day-to-day operations, tracking household data, volunteer info and donations, extension dates info, and dashboards that show food waste statistics, there are no other applications out there like Pantry Patrol. And one of the main areas that we've been focusing on currently is as part of our Pantry Patrol Foundation, we have a tablet distribution program. So we're distributing free tablets to food pantries that do not have access to technology. And these tablets will be preloaded with the Pantry Patrol software. And we believe that this is a great way to help those food pantries who don't have access to technology by providing them with a resource to use our application. So that's the main initiative we've been focusing on currently and this summer. And we've been really ramping up our outreach. Next slide. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. Yeah.
And at this time, if I could have screen share controls, I will go ahead and share the app demo.
You should be good to go.
Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so I can start the app demo with the first section, which is the household section. So a typical food pantry, just to give a little background for the section, a typical food pantry serves a number of households in their community, and they're required to keep information about the households they serve, such as whether these households qualify for subsidized meal programs, such as the Emergency Food Assistance Program. So the purpose of the household section of our application is to collect information regarding clients and their families who are recipients of these the food from these food pantries. So the contact name, qualification for subsidized meal programs, the size of the household, and importantly, dietary and allergy info. So over here, you can see that Siddharth is entering the dietary preferences. So this application, like I said before, it really is a place to have all that information, that client information, for those food pantry, for those people who are receiving, this food from these food pantries. And this is like a nice consolidated place to have access all that information for the food pantry to have. So that basically sums up this section of our application. The next section that I'd like to go into is the volunteer section. And a lot of the food pantries we talked to expressed the need, or like they wanted to see a volunteer section in their application because they had a lot of volunteers, and they they had paper pencil methods that they were using to track this information, but they wanted a way to digitize this information and have it like like an online or like a digitized record of this information. So the purpose of this section of our application is to record basic volunteer information, as well as how many hours they volunteered at the food pantry. And over here, you can see what Siddharth's sharing. You can see the address, first name, last name, phone number, email, hours logged, reason for volunteering, whether they completed a background check. So some of the food pantries we talked to complete background checks for their volunteers, and whether they need a letter of recommendation or not, whether the volunteers need them. So depending on like what they're doing the community service for, some of them might need a letter of recommendation and some may not. So this is also like a useful piece of information that some of the food pantries asked us to implement in our application and track. All right, so moving on to the next section. The next section of our application is the cash donation section. So in addition to the food donation section, which Arnav will touch on later, food pantries can also accept cash donations, and this part of our app allows them to keep track of cash donations made by individual donors. So over here, we can see like a specific donor ID that's given to the donor, the date, the amount, and the frequency of the donation. So weekly, monthly, semi-annually, yearly, depending on what the frequency of the donation is, you can automatically set that into the application. It'll be configured. So this is like a useful feature if food pantries are typically receiving donations on like a periodic basis or like an ongoing basis. And lastly, moving into the cash donor section. This is different from the cash donation section because this specifically keeps track of information pertaining to cash donors. And the purpose of this section of our app is to record information pertaining to cash donors that the food pantry might need to keep track of, such as the donor type, email, and phone number, and whether they want to receive text or not. So that sums up the sections that I'll be talking about, and now I'll hand it over to Arnav. All right, so Abhinav mentioned this previously, but with the food donation section, food pantries typically receive food donations from partner food banks, as well as from other agencies such as local grocers. And this may include grocers such as Food Line, Walmart, etc. So this provides us with the first opportunity to track the amount of food that is donated as part of these transactions and the amount of food that is wasted as part of these transactions as well. So as Siddharth is sharing, basically this section tracks the category of food donated, the quantity in pounds, the extension date, which Siddharth will touch on later, who inspected the food item. So this directly connects to the volunteers section of our application, and whether or not the food was distributed. So moving on to the next section of our application, which is the food inspection section. Food pantries are required to periodically inspect food they distribute for any damage, spoilage, etc. So this section of our application allows food pantry volunteers to record the amount of food that is spoiled or food that has gone bad before distribution. So with this section of our application, as we can see in this menu, we have who the food item was inspected by, the date of the inspection. Also, food pantry volunteers can include a picture of the type of spoilage, which may be a better indicator of what type of spoilage has occurred, and also the inspection date and the total spoiled dollars. So we know a lot of food pantries are interested in the monetary amount of waste. So this allows them, we use a conversion factor provided by the food bank, which is 1 pound of food is equal to $1.70. So this converts to $18.92 in this case in spoiled food. And the last section I'll be talking about is the prepare a box section. So a typical food pantry makes equally sized boxes for their household. However, given that our app has information about the individual households through our household section, and more specifically dietary preferences and allergy information, this section allows food pantries that operate based on choice in order to distribute food items to pantries and customize to the clients and customize these boxes for individual households and only pack food items that individual households can consume. So with this section of our application, we have the name of the client. So in this case, it's Sally Jones. The dietary preferences, this may be vegan or halal. Allergies, gluten-free in this case, the number of people in the household, which could help food pantries that operate by distributing boxes to ensure that they allocate resources efficiently, and also the contact number of the representative of that household. All right, and I'll hand it over to Siddharth.
All right, thanks, Arnav. So I'm going to be talking about the food waste statistics section first. Me personally, this is one of my favorite sections just because of how colorful everything is. But what's really unique about this section is it's an important aspect of understanding the underlying reasons behind food waste that's happening at food pantries, and by systematic or methodically, like understanding exactly where the causes behind it and understanding and visualizing this data, it allows food pantries to view these statistics because we're taking data from that food inspection section that Arno talked about and putting them into various graphs over here that are visible on the dashboards. So I'm just going to briefly click through each of these and explain them, and then we'll move on to the next section. So first here, all the way on the left, we can see the different reasons. So in the food inspection section, if you recall, it asks for a reason behind why the food waste is happening. So these are all the default reasons, and pantries can, of course, add more reasons if none of these suit their criteria. So we can see here, it looks like 40% of the waste is foul smell. Let's investigate that further. So we're able to click on that entry over here, and we can see there's two separate instances of when that happened. So let's click on that major percent over here, and boom, it'll take us right exactly to that entry where this waste is happening. And what's really nice about this is if you're repeatedly saying that, okay, a lot of my food is being wasted due to foul smell, and you're noticing consistent pattern, let's say grocer XYZ is constantly providing that foul smell food waste, and you're able to systematically work with that grocer to kind of eliminate or minimize that food waste from coming in. So that covers the reasons over here. Next over here is category. Again, very similar to reasons, except it's just over here in terms of like bakery, beverages, dairy, deli, meat, eggs. Same concept. So if we see, looks like, oh, the most produce is being wasted. So we're able to click on that and it takes us to that exact entry behind what's causing the majority of that waste. Over here, the third one is the dollar value. So as Arno mentioned, food pantries use a conversion factor of $1.70 per pound of food. So we're able to really quantify that because one person might not really able to visualize like, oh, 50 pounds of chicken was wasted. But if you say $75 worth of chicken wasted, it's a lot easier for people to visualize that data. And again, you're able to click on this and filter out, or click on that and determine which entry that is. And you can see that leads us to the same entry that we looked at earlier. And all the way on the right here is a date filter. So when we spoke to food pantries, what we discovered is that some pantries like to look back on their wastage for a given month or a given, quarter or year. So we have a date filter where you can set it up. So I just set it up to, what's today's date? August 9th. I'll set the bottom one to August. And the top one to, let's say, 06/07/23. Oops, wrong year. So you can see the wastage already updated. And between this period, what that means is since everything is zero, we haven't had any wastage in that period. So if we go back to 2020, then we can see, oh, the graphs have changed. So that really allows food pantries to reflect backwards and figure out what their given food waste looks like for a given range of time. The next feature that I'd like to talk about in our application is the extension dates feature. And so when we spoke with the food bank, we learned that a lot of food that is past its like best by date or sell by date that you see on the label is actually perfectly safe to consume. That date is more so of a quality advisory rather than a safety advisory. And food banks typically advise their food pantries to utilize a resource called the extension dates list. And what that does is that tells you the safety of the food beyond its best by date or sell by date. And when we spoke to the various food pantries that we conducted outreach with, many of them are not familiar with this tool or do not implement it because it's not easily accessible to them. So we tried to alleviate both of that by directly embedding it into our application. So whenever a food pantry employee opens up our application, that extension date list is right there, easy for them to access. And the last feature I'd like to talk about, which you can't actually see in the app because it's automatic on the back end, is the auto-generate reports feature. The contact we worked with at the food bank told us that it would be really nice for them if food pantries could send them a monthly wastage report. But when we talked to the food pantry side, they're like, that's just another thing that we have to do, and we're already filling out a lot of paperwork, so that's not super practical for them time-wise. So our application, what it does is it takes that data that's already been put into the food inspection section of the application, and it'll automatically email a food bank representative with a PDF of that report every month. And you can choose to set the date based on what date you want to send to the food bank, and the food bank is able to easily see where the food waste is happening, the different categories and everything, without having food pantries do any additional work. So that basically wraps up our app demonstration. And one more thing I'd like to add here is that what you see here is just like our general centralized application. As Arnav talked about earlier, we do make customized app instances for each food pantry. So, and the way we do that is we actually visit these food pantries and learn their operational systems. So when we visited the Holly Springs food cupboard, of course in Holly Springs, we learned that they were really focused more on the food recovery aspect, and they'd like to have some temperature monitoring fields as well. When we visited the Emmanuel Food Pantry in Durham, we learned that their focus was more so on the easy customer registration and the food waste tracking element. So based on that, we were able to custom tailor their use cases of the application to suit their needs. And that's one of the things we really pride ourselves on here at Pantry Patrol, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all application. The app is custom tailored to each food pantry's needs. Thank you.
That is so awesome. And that is hands down the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Siddharth, Abhinav, and Arnav, I know you already left. You guys are incredibly impressive. Thank you so much for presenting all of this. I highly encourage anybody who is interested in this, please reach out to them. This tool is free. It is so useful. There's volunteer management. I mean, they just went through it all. I mean, it's a gold mine. Please reach out to these wonderful people who created this wonderful thing. And I know you guys have to go, so if you guys want to go ahead and sign off, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch. All right. So going into the next basic point about development and food pantry innovation, we really wanted to speak about volunteerism. A lot of food pantries are completely run by volunteers, and there's a million different ways a system could improve, but volunteers is really the foundation of food pantries. So many pantries, they don't have the financial resources, and like Siddharth was going into, a lot of pantries, it's not practical for them to focus on giving food banks, you know, the data analytics, while they're also just trying to get food to the people in need. So we need, you know, volunteers. And going into, you know, college campus volunteers, I really want to encourage people to really reach out to students. Students are very into basic needs, and they're very into social issues and helping each other. The younger they are, the more altruistic they usually are. So once they get into the subjects of what they're studying in their own campus, they want to be hands-on. I highly encourage people to reach out, and the food bank has clocked about 142,000 hours of volunteer hours. That's equivalent to 68 full-time employees, which would be thousands and thousands of dollars, which they did not have. So volunteerism is just really wanted to focus on that, and like strongly encourage food pantry leaders to develop their volunteer system if they don't have it already. And that's why I also want to bring up the Pantry Patrol app again, because they have a volunteer management system. If you just use the app, you guys can sign people in, sign people out, and just do what you need to do. To the slides, I've also attached, you know, basic management volunteer document that's based off of a food bank from New York City, just as a basic foundation to work off of if you are starting to develop a volunteer system and you need a basic place to start. This is where you want to resource it. Okay, and now to the big point of the webinar, we are going to go into our food pantry grants. So this year, my wonderful boss, Cindy Myra, and our team presented to the Board of Commissioners a $7 million food security plan, which was awarded. If anyone would like to go into more details, the link is right here. And this is also the cover of our plan. It is posted on our website. There are 10 different strategies for these grants, and we have $7 million to disperse in this next year. So if you are interested in anything regarding grants, please check out this document. So what we are looking for. We're looking for pantries that need to expand their services, and that looks like serving more fresh produce, assisting clients to gain access to additional resources, and improving operations. So, work hours can be more flexible and families can go to food pantries when they're outside of work. So we're looking for new models, and we want online ordering systems to combine client choice, the basic patterns that have been sustained from COVID, essentially. We want to encourage pantry partnership with communal gardens and farmers. We would like to collaborate and enhance customer service. We want pantries to produce more of their own fresh food, partner with other support services. And this looks different in many different ways. The expansion of any kind of pantry is really what we're looking for. And short term, more specifically, a yearly request for the proposal kind of looks like this. So if you would like to increase your storage capacity, increase fresh produce, offer wraparound services, and build stronger regional partnerships to promote the sustainability of the food pantry, this is definitely something that's up your alley. All right, how do these grants look like? So we have 10 grants that are $3,000 a year for 3 years. We have space to work with. If you have multiple pantries and you would like to apply together, we might receive a larger amount of that funding. So why are we giving out these grants? Well, we want to bridge the gap that stands in the way of people gaining access to healthy foods. Surveys from English and Spanish speaking citizens at food pantries noted that the expansion of operation hours would increase food security in their lives. This is an informal timeline of what our pantry grant process is looking like. We got awarded in April the grant money for the food security plan. We're hoping to have applicants in this fall, and we're hoping to distribute these awards by 2024. I'm just going to leave the floor open for any questions. And thank you for attending the webinar. We will record and post these slides on the website for anybody else to resource if you would like to come back to these slides. All of these documents are linked in the slides, so if you just want to click on the resources, feel free to utilize them. Does anybody have any questions?
I think our timeline for the grants is running like a month behind at this point. I just realized, Cam, I should have caught that. Part of our food plan process, the community asked that we have a cohort of individuals to help us design RFPs and grant opportunities so that they could support our smaller community-led organizations that a lot of times have barriers to accessing those funds, county funds specifically. And so we are getting that group together, and that's taking the county through all the legal processes is taking a little bit longer. So I think realistically, the pantry grants will be released in October, November, but we hope to have them awarded by the end of the year. And then that way in the spring, especially if pantries are wanting to partner with a farm or a garden, they already know in the new year what that might look like.
Awesome.
So yeah. Okay. And I think a lot of the pantry shared like a need for better storage for fresh produce, so that could be an option. It can pay for some volunteer staff time if you want to extend operational hours. A lot of that is being worked out with the cohort that will be developing the RFP, but it'll align with what food plan shared.
All right. Yeah, so this main webinar is completely about developing and innovating your food pantry. If you are interested in that, please review the video, highlight volunteerism. Please reach out to Pantry Patrol if you could utilize their resources, and please reach out to us about food pantry grants. All right. And thank you everybody for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
And I see one question in the chat about being able to use it for Pantry Patrol for tablets. I think if there was pantries that you had talked with that would benefit from that, so you had kind of an idea of ones in Wake County that would benefit from that and be able to expand their capacity and could make a case for that, then yes, I think that would absolutely be applicable to apply. So, does anybody else have questions before we close the floor? All right.
All right. Thank you, Sydney.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.